Hey guys, today I wanted to talk a little bit about blended learning. In the district that I'm teaching in, we'll go into one-to-one next year. That means every student in the school will have a device. In the area around me, Bucks County, we're actually one of the last districts that's actually going to one-to-one. So we're a little bit behind the curve, but we do use devices in classes often. With this presentation, with the research, I wanted to take a look at what devices we can use and how can we can start to incorporate blended learning. This is specifically kind of catered towards teachers in my building and maybe even my administration. I know with talking to some of the more veteran teachers and some of the older teachers, they're a little bit intimidated with what blended learning might be or how to use a device in the classroom. And I think the approach that I got and with the research I was able to do and what I was able to learn from it, I realized that blended learning doesn't have to be forced. And sometimes when it is forced, it doesn't work as well. So go through a little bit of this, talk a little bit about it, and see what we can come up with. So with blended learning, we're looking at the new age classroom. When we think about learning in the past and even the not so far back past, we see it as more lecture based. This is us, the content experts, the teachers, delivering content to the students. And students may be taking notes or writing papers, or even with project-based learning, coming up with posters and things like that. But I think with devices and with the advancements that are happening in educational technology, it's important to make use of that. And that with upcoming technology and more apps every day, we need to really tap into that. And our students are growing up in a technological age. A lot of our students are more experienced with technology than even we are. They're growing up in this age, so they know it. They need to be able to use it when they get out of school. So if we look back at past education, it's becoming more and more dated. And if we're not willing to get up with the times, I think that we're setting up some of our students for being honest, failure. So what is blended learning? Blended learning is when students learn in part through online learning and they have an element of control over where, when, and how they work. I think that control factor is a really big thing to kind of key in on. A lot of times we get that wet paint, don't touch, and even the opposite of that, where we're forcing students to do certain things on a certain time frame. And I think that releasing some of that responsibility makes things a little bit more lifelike and a little bit more job-like, if we're being honest. A lot of times we're given a task and we're given a lot of time, but we're not telling students exactly what they need to do at that specific moment. This element of control, especially through online learning, is something that students can really tap in on. And remember, their skills and where they're growing up and what they do and some of their hobbies and how they interact with each other. Sometimes, as much as we hate to admit it, is through technology. If we look at this chart on the side, 56% of teachers agree that tech increases student ownership of work. And when we all know that when we take pride and we take ownership in something, that becomes more meaningful. And we want our education to be more meaningful for our students. We want our students to really tap into what's going on, and really get something out of it. So how it can look in your classroom. I really want to take some time to talk about this. Blended learning doesn't have to be every single day, and I don't think it should be. I think that with an increase in devices in the classroom, that we can start using blended learning here and there to really tap into what's going on. You're never going to replace face-to-face interaction, at least not in my opinion. I think that face-to-face interaction is really important, but I think that there's ways that we can incorporate the technology to really emulate and to really elevate that face-to-face interaction. So number one is teacher-led instruction in a classroom, in part done through technology. Specifically for my district at CB, we now have one-to-one, so we're going to be using laptops. Again, it doesn't have to be every day, and I know that's a concern for what some of the older teachers are looking at. They think it's forced. They think that we're making students do it, and we're making teachers use devices, and that's not totally true. Now, while I'll argue that technology in education is only going to continue to grow, and the push for technology in education is going to continue to grow, and that if we don't get up with the times, we fear that we may be left behind. I still don't think that it needs to be students hunched over at a laptop typing every single day. I still think that content expertise from a teacher, and that passion that teachers have and the passion that we all have for our content can't really be emulated through technology. So I think that using that face to face with an incorporation of tech can be very valuable. Number two, students select enrichment and timing, allowing for greater collaboration. One of the best things that I did last year was using collaborative Word documents. I know a lot of people use Google Docs. We use Office 365 at CB. So we were using a collaborative Word document in order for students to work with each other and to kind of share ideas. One thing that I did, I paired up with a friend of mine who teaches in the same district, but high school honors. And I have eighth grade honors and academic. And what I did and what we did is we paired them up, high school, two 10th graders and two eighth graders. And they worked on a collaborative document and they analyzed two pieces of literature. The 10th graders were working with The Great Gatsby, while my students were working with Fahrenheit 451, our most difficult text. And it was a kind of sounding board, and they were able to kind of talk to each other about what they were learning and how they were learning it. And I think that was super valuable. And they were able to really talk about what was going on, and really see what was happening. And that was a valuable moment for them as learners to see that they're not the only ones that struggle with reading, or they're not the only ones that caught something in a book. And even allowing them to compare what the authors were doing and the stylistic choices. We specifically focused on various elements of fiction and allowed students to really dive into what those elements of fiction were and how they existed in these two different novels, and how at the same time they were very similar. And that was a pretty cool moment for my students, and I know that they got a lot out of that. And I know we used to have pen pals, but if we're being honest, I don't think we get that if it's not for technology. So I think that enrichment aspect, and really allowing students to not only seek what they do well, but also kind of stretch their boundaries. If we're thinking about Vygotsky, really push the envelope of what we're capable, at least we think we're capable of doing, in order to get more out of education. Number three, technology used at home and in the classroom to advance research and media. We live in a research based age. Uh, More and more different studies are coming out and different statistics, and we live in a world of fake news too, where we need to be aware of these things. And with technology, it does put more information in front of us. Now, I still think it's our job, number one, as teacher instruction and teacher led instruction, to really show kids how to sift through and sieve through that research in order to find what works for them, and in order to find what's valuable. We've all kind of found sources before that we thought were awesome, but upon further research, we realized that maybe those stats don't line up. So creating more informed and creating more educated and more soundproof students is going to allow them to be better citizens and better voters and better people in the society, not only to themselves and for themselves, but for others as well. 101 is on the rise. As of 2017, a report from Front Row Education states that more than 50% of teachers now have devices in their classrooms. With the increase of technology being placed in front of students, teachers are finding more and more ways to release information. I think that release of information's awesome. I think that we know that not every student looking at us in a given day is going to learn the same way. So continuing to grow as teachers and continuing to grow with technology and how we put information in front of students and how we present it to them is going to be key in how our students learn and continue to learn. Um, we know that not every student learns the same way. With technology, we can tap into different types of learners all in the same lecture. Just whether you use a smart board, whether you use a computer, or whether you're using an interactive website. It allows students to again have more ownership and to feel like they're part of something and to feel like they're part of their own education. I could play this video. It's the basics of blended learning. This kind of takes you through some of the old lecture style that we were used to, the traditional Layton classroom, and then we talk a little bit more about where education's going and what blended education is. It's actually a really great video. You can find that on YouTube, or I can share this link as well, and you can look at it there. I will definitely go over 15 minutes if I show that one, but that website, or that video rather, is there for you. Last thing, I found this clip on an infograph actually when we were looking at Voice on the Rise. Teachers value the use of mobile device for impact on learning. Ways mobile learning is having a strong impact on student learning. One, students have the ability to explore topics in more depth. It's at their fingers. Technology is there for them. They're able to research things that they're passionate about. And, when they have that passion and they have that engagement, they're going to want to learn more. And when they want to learn more, we get so much more out of it as teachers, too. It makes our job a little easier. Students have greater access to online content and resources, different apps, different websites, different information is being created every day, and sometimes even from our own students. So using that is great, and with devices, we can really get the most out of our students. Number three, students are more engaged in the learning process, which I think is huge. I know I continue to reiterate this idea of engagement, but I think that engagement really helps us and helps our students to learn. It allows us to feel like we're part of something, and allows us to really feel like what we're saying matters, and as students, what they're hearing really matters. Number four, learning is more personalized for students. We know that personalized education and differentiated instruction is something that is, of great importance in education these days. And personalized education is big, and it allows students to get the most out of it. It allows us to hit our top tier students just as much as we talk to, maybe some students that are struggling a little bit. So being able to personalize information, being able to personalize, what we're teaching for every student is more possible with technology and with devices than it ever was before. We know we've had lessons where we've maybe hit a couple students in the class, but maybe not all of them. And with education, with various devices and with blended learning, we're able to really dedicate time to every student. It allows us to spend less time lecturing and more time talking to students about where they struggle. And the last one is students are developing stronger information and media literacy skills. We looked at this in a couple modules ago where media literacy is big. How students use media and how students can sometimes manipulate media and how sometimes we manipulate media. This is something that we need to be aware of. And in this world of increased technology, we need to be aware of that, and we need to be more informed on that, and our students need to be more informed on that. And students becoming more comfortable with devices and more comfortable with devices in their classrooms and in their learning is going to be big. We know that even on online courses like this one, the use of media and the use of technology is essential to our learning, and it's essential to the process of learning. So I think that blended learning is something that has great possibilities for all of our classrooms, and I think that devices need to be continued to be encouraged in education and encouraged into every classroom. The days of looking up words in a dictionary, as an English teacher, it pains me to say, are over. Why waste 45 seconds? That's quick. Why waste 5 minutes on something that takes 10 seconds with a Google search? We need to really continue to tap in on technology in the classroom. Thanks, guys.